Well, hello and welcome, Derek Coburn. Thank you so much for being on the Dating Advisory Board. I'm excited to have you here today. To give the listeners a little bit of background, Derek is a CEO and co-founder, along with his wife, Melanie, of Cadre, an unnetworking community in Washington, D.C., serving CEOs and business leaders, and has hosted numerous best-selling authors and thought leaders at university events. He began his professional journey as a financial advisor in 1998 and has been a partner at Washington Financial Group for 15 years. Derek is the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Networking is Not Working, Stop Collecting Business Cards and Start Making Meaningful Connections. Derek lives in Washington, D.C. with his fabulous wife, Melanie, 2 sons, and pit bull named Bodie. So welcome.
Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, thanks so much. So can you give the audience a little bit of your background of how you got to where you are today and your kind of thoughts on like how you created Cadre?
Sure. So like you just mentioned, I began my professional journey as a financial advisor in 1998, right out of college. And the way I fell into that occupation was I interned for a financial advisor at American Express in between my junior and senior year. And back then, including when I started, your success as a financial advisor was basically boiled down to, could you deal with the rejection that came from all of the cold calling that the job entailed? And I apparently was pretty good at it, so good at it, in fact, that the guy who ran the entire office had me give a presentation. I'm a junior in college, and I'm giving a presentation to all of the people who do this for their actual job for how to more effectively cold call. And so, by day and, by school year, I was, by day, I should say, I was, when I was cold calling, I was getting shot down predominantly by prospective clients for this financial advisor. And by night, I was getting shot down by women that I was trying to pick up when I went out. So I ended up making that my career, and there was just a lot more of that for the next 4 to 5 years, and eventually graduated from cold calling to the point where I started going to networking events. And I think that networking events are similar to cold calling in terms of the ROI. I think that they are not a very good use of your time. But unlike cold calling, going to networking events, you don't have people standing you up. You don't have people slamming the phone down in your ear. And so you can go to 1 or 2 a week and meet nice people and have nice conversations and not ever step back and say like, wow, I'm really wasting my time doing this. So I started using some different strategies that would allow me to grow my network and grow my business that did not entail going to big events, and ended up transitioning that into Cadre back in 2011 and run it as a completely separate business.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So on the Cadre side, can you talk about how the group's formed and a little bit about how you get these amazing speakers? Because I do want to come with that in the next question, but I want to tell the listeners what Cadre is.
Sure. So I guess I'll answer your first question here, and then I'll come to the other one. I think that when we started it, we said, look, Melanie and I, we're wired as givers, and we want to show up and get to know someone, figure out how we can add value for them. And, Adam Grant wrote a great book called Give and Take. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But it takes a look at the 3 types of people in the world. There's givers, there's takers, and there's matchers. Okay.
Right.
And part of what he talks about is if you're a giver and you're constantly surrounded by takers, or you're not even bothering to identify who other givers are, you're going to burn out eventually. So we thought, hey, there are groups out there that are vetting for job title or income or, how much money you're going to pay, but no one is really vetting for this mindset of, are you successful enough that you can show up and focus on how you can add value for other people and not be focused on yourself? We weren't sure if it would work, and we relied on a good core group of about 15 or 20 people that were in our network at the time to help us round up the right people. And overall, it worked out pretty well. And to this day, when I get asked, how do you maintain the quality control in Cadre? Because I think a lot of different types of organizations can say that. It's kind of like saying we give great customer service.
Right.
I think that the logical answer is I have the revenue coming in from my wealth management business that allows me to be indifferent to any one person's $500 a month, to where if they are not showing up in a way that's contributing to other people, that's fine. You're not going to be a good fit here. And I think the ancillary benefit of having two businesses going together side by side is that I can really stick to my guns in terms of who's a good client in the wealth management business, who's a good member in cadre, and in a way that I never had the courage to really do before that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I love it. I'm so thankful to be a part of the group. I've met amazing friends and business colleagues, and it's true. I mean, you create your tribe, right? Your dating advisory boards and business and your personal life. Now, what I think is so interesting, what is your strategy in getting these world-class speakers to your events? I mean, you've had Daniel Pink on there, Gary Vaynerchuk, Chris Brogan, Philip McKernan. I mean, how do you cultivate those relationships?
So kind of looked into it. After we had our very first university event, which featured my friend DeMar Smith, who's the head of the NFLPA. I got an email on Christmas Eve from Chris Brogan, whose blog list I had subscribed to. And he said, I'm coming out with a new book. And the first 5 people that buy 300 copies of my book, I'll waive my $20,000 speaking fee. So I did that on Christmas Day and worked out an agreement with him for that event. And then I realized that other authors were doing this as well. Not all authors, but a lot of them who typically had anywhere from $15,000 to $75,000 speaking fees. They would leverage their speaking as a primary way for them to market their book. And they were looking, all these authors are looking to create a lot of velocity around the time their book comes out. So you couldn't go to an author who came out with a book a year ago and say, I'll buy 300 copies of your book. Like, they don't care. They want it all to happen at once so they get on the list. Usually, almost always not for ego reasons, but because most people, when they buy books, they look at the lists. And that's why you see Malcolm Gladwell has 3 books that are still on the New York Times bestseller list, because it just continues to, it stays on the list. People go to the list, they buy it, and it just, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. And so I would say that, coupled with the fact that I've gone back to our speakers, a lot of the people that you mentioned, and because they had a great experience at our event, they are touting it to their friends who maybe otherwise would not have done it. I went to an event called the Impresario Workshop with Seth Godin a couple years ago, and he said whenever anybody asks him to speak at their event, he wants to know 2 things. The first one is, whose audience? Are you relying on me to get all of my people to come, or are you going to have your audience there? And 2, tell me more about your audience, and is your audience part of the talent? Because the more that you can authentically sell your audience as part of the talent, the easier it's going to be to attract the talent. And I think we've done that, because whenever Jay Baer or Chris Brogan or Dan Pink sends an email to somebody that they think would be a great speaker for cadre, they're talking first and foremost how great our members are and how great the people are there.
Yeah, and think about that's a referral, right? I mean, just like in the dating world,
yep.
Right? I mean, nowadays there's so many apps, there's so much technology. Like, how do you manage it? And you talk a lot about time management in a lot of the sessions that you do, and you have some. I want you to give some examples of how you
Sure.
do it, because you're busy, right? You're basically running 2 companies. So can you just give us a couple lists or a couple apps? I mean, we could utilize in our personal.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I would say that. And by the way, you mentioned that it's a referral, but it's also very helpful to the author that they're introducing us to, right? Because they ideally would like to do it, but I'll never forget Chris Brogan said, you were the one of the 5 that was the only one that was probably enjoyable or a good experience for me, because a lot of them are really reluctant to just put that offer out there because they don't know who's going to sign up for it, right? And so I just wanted to point that out. In terms of apps, I would say, or, Contactually, I don't know if you've had anyone talk about Contactually yet. The CEO, obviously, is V-Band. He's in cadre. He's here in DC. For me, it is the best app by far to use for staying in touch with people who are important to you. And while it has a lot of great features, its core, I would say its primary function is that you can create buckets of people. So that your buckets could be, you can call them whatever you want, but they could be tier 1 clients or super hot prospects or whatever you want. And then you assign a period of time, 30 days, 5 days, 6 months, to where if they haven't emailed you or you haven't emailed them, you get a reminder. So it just holds you accountable. And ideally, you're not getting reminders. Ideally, you're doing it when you say you're going to do it. But if there are people in your life or in your business that you want to be in touch with every 3 months and you're not, it's going to let you know about it.
Yeah, because sometimes you have those lists or you have all these quotes that are old and say, oh, I'm going to get to, I'll remember to do that. And what do most people do? They don't remember.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And so let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the book. So give us some examples. I mean, I know one personal I will talk about, and you can kind of go expand on it, that you told the group to do, is that you put together these groups instead of just giving tickets, right, to clients. You actually say, hey, bring a friend, or here's, I'm going to get 4 tickets to the Nats game. You can bring 3 people, right? And you're creating that, or you're doing a wine tasting and you having, inviting people that way. So can you give us some examples of how we can better network and grow our customer base? And I'll kind of tie it into the dating in a second.
Sure. So I would say that my approach to networking is essentially the intersection of client appreciation or client service and business development. And I think there are a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and sales reps out there that sort of view them separately. I have to spend more time servicing my clients. It doesn't leave me enough time to prospect or to network or meet new people. Or I've been neglecting my clients while I grow my business. And what I found is that you can bring the two of them together and have these events or have these interactions that you can host and curate, play double duty. So if I had 4 tickets to a sporting event or a golf foursome, like I don't think I've ever just given those away. I mean, I always saw the value and at least I want to be there, but I would invite 3 clients and that was fine. And oftentimes my clients got along, but then I realized I'm not leveraging these as a way to meet new people. Furthermore, my clients would probably enjoy the experience much more if they were sharing it with their friends and their colleagues. So I started then, in this example, I would go to my client and I would invite my client and then give him the other 2 invites to extend to people that he wanted to invite. They had a better time. And look, I have a recurring revenue. Both of my businesses are recurring revenue. So this is a little bit harder to justify for someone that's in the transaction business or someone that is, selling, thousands of widgets or downloads that cost $10 a piece. But if you are in a recurring revenue business where January 1, you know what your revenue is going to be if you keep your existing clients happy, then it makes sense all day long to invest in those experiences for your clients. But there are also a lot of little subtle things you can do without selling, without being a scumbag, without talking about your business to their guests, because you never want to do that. It's going to be stepping on your clients' toes. That will position you for these people to eventually become clients or at least take an interest in what you're doing.
Right. No, that makes sense. Now, from the strategy side, right, because you have strategies, right, that you use, what would you suggest people do to create a dating strategy? Do you have any steps that you would think cultivate, or just because you're back in cold calling, the people that you're going to talk to, your mission statement. Can you give us some examples?
I think so. So one of the reasons, and this is going to be very relevant to your question, but one of the 2 main reasons why I say networking is not working. That's the question I get all the time because it's the title of my book. And my response is it doesn't work for most people because we all define it differently. If you were to ask 20 people to define the word networking, you would not only get different definitions, but you would have some people using it as an adjective, some people using it as a verb, some people using it as a noun. And I think your success when it comes to networking is directly correlated with your ability to be around people who are doing it for the same reasons as you. So when we talk about dating strategies, as a guy who's been dating my current gal for a long time, right? I've been out of that scene for a little bit. I mean, what is, do you have sort of for your purposes or for the purposes of your listeners, they're like a definition for what you're trying to accomplish when you're dating?
Right. So, I mean, if you're trying to say, okay, just like in the business boardroom, like you're creating your dating strategy because now you are your brand,
Yep.
right? Like you are it. So, like, that's going to be a good segue into this question. Any
Well, I'm not
tips
trying to avoid your question.
No,
I'm just saying that my dating strategy when I was dating and not looking for a girlfriend might not be the dating strategy of someone who's looking to get married.
Right.
It would be two totally different things.
Yeah, no, but you're having your idea of what you're looking for, right? So that's coming up with your strategy on. You may not be looking to get married. You may just be looking to date somebody. But overall, knowing your purpose of what you're trying to do and kind of using that as an interesting way of, do you use it for networking? Do you find people through networking or referrals? What would you say? What would you suggest doing and having them?
Well, I think again, it comes back to why are you doing it, and are you not having success because you are interacting with people who are doing it for different reasons as you are, right? Mm-hmm. So just like if you go to a networking event, you might be there because you're looking to develop a couple of really good relationships that could develop over time. Right. And if you have 3 or 4 conversations with somebody looking for a new job, they're worthless to you, but you're just as worthless to them. You know what I mean? So in the example that I gave earlier, it might not be a successful night for me if I run into somebody that was looking to settle down and meet Mr. Right, and it wasn't successful for that person. So then I'm thinking, how can I put myself in situations and around people that might be interested in the same things that I am?
Yeah, I know that's a good point. Yeah. So do you have any tips to go up to that hot girl in the bar? How should people engage the 10s? Like Melanie, how would you go up to Melanie? I mean, she's a 10,000, but how would you strategize that?
She is a 10,000, and I would say that that for me, I've always said this, and I really believe it, that when I look at my relationship with Melanie and the fact that I'm married to her, that I won by default, right? I didn't do anything that was super impressive. I didn't make her swoon. I didn't initially, right? It was just I wasn't as much of a jerk, or I didn't seem as desperate as a lot of the other guys that were coming up to her. Mm-hmm. And so I think that and there's a lot of this is kind of correlated almost with with networking and in developing relationships professionally. I mean, you get a meeting with a big potential client, or you have an opportunity to meet one of your favorite authors. I mean, if you're sweating and right. you're stuttering over your words with this prospective client, or you're going up to the new author or the author that you love, and you're asking, the first thing that you're asking is, can I get my picture taken with you? I'm such a big fan. They might take their picture with you, but they're never going to view you as a peer. They're never likely to view you as somebody that they want to collaborate with or maybe learn more about. So, I think, just from my perspective, right, I don't think that there's a magic line, but I think that just being yourself, especially if they're 10s, because the 10s are used to having guys be uncomfortable around them and saying things that are stupid mm-hmm.
or not going even up to them.
Right, because they're scared.
They're scared.
They're talking to their buddy for 15 minutes about what they should say instead of just going up and starting a conversation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have one girlfriend, and she's awesome. I mean, she's just super smart, funny, pretty girl, and she's like, I just don't ever get asked out. I mean, she's like, nobody comes out to me. I said, well, all the networking events we all go to, they don't come up. And she's like, no. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, guys just go up to them, just say hi, because they're probably not, not
right.
expecting it.
Right.
Right? And it's just interesting. So what are some of the craziest dating stories you've ever heard of or experienced?
All right, so I will share a story that you might find interesting, but there's a show called Eliminate that was on 10 or 12 years ago, and it was probably it was on longer. It was actually longer than that. This is 15 years ago. And I went to try out, and they did a couple of interviews with me, and they called me up. And whenever I tell this story, the show is where it's a guy or a girl, and they're on a date with 4 others of the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. And at each commercial break, you're eliminating one until you're finally left with one that's remaining.
Okay.
And I just remember, this was before Facebook, this was before the internet, but it was I was in my conservative, I just have a financial advisor business, and I have to make sure I don't say or do anything dumb on television, which is pretty remarkable. I'm really happy that I did that at the time because I could have easily gone in a different direction.
Right.
And so whenever I tell the story, people always say like, "Oh, did she pick you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm the one that had 4 girls." But I love how all my friends assume that I wasn't qualified to carry it all myself. So that was pretty fun. We did it at Frederick Keys Baseball Stadium, and it was, like playing baseball and pitching to them. And it didn't really become obvious how lame ours was until the last commercial break before the final segment of our show. They're like, coming up next on Eliminate, and it's like guys with girls at strip poles and stripper poles and like hot tubs, and it's like, now back to the baseball stadium.
Oh my gosh.
So, but that was a pretty fun experience, and nothing ever came from it with any of the girls, but it was kind of like a good talking point for, good asset arrow in my quiver for later conversations.
Oh yeah, that's good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean I don't know, you knew that I was on ESPN reality show years ago. Did I ever tell you that? Yeah, I won an ESPN reality sports show.
Nice.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a good time, a long time ago. It was sports related, to have your ultimate, basically you sacrifice yourself for others to have their ultimate sports dream come true. So I played for one of my girlfriends and I won.
Very cool.
I was very excited about it. So, but
I wanted to add on to something I was saying earlier about, because I felt like I didn't really answer your question about what makes dating successful. And I cannot remember where I heard this, but someone had suggested that if they were a single female and they were looking to meet a great guy and settle down, and they typically go out to bars and clubs and they never like the results they're getting, that they would save up a little bit of money and they would buy 1 share of Berkshire Hathaway stock.
Yeah.
And they would go to the annual or 2-time a year meeting.
Shareholders meeting, right?
Shareholders meeting in Nebraska, and they would just be around a lot of, it's like, I think the person said it was over 80% men. They would be around just 80% men who are probably successful and are probably responsible and doing good things with their money. I mean, obviously there's probably crazy people there too, but I think that kind of like thinking outside of the box, right, is probably better than just continuing to like bang your head against the wall and do the same thing over and over again, especially if it's not working.
Right. And think about getting on different boards around the area. So if you're in the DC area, there's tons of boards you can get involved with.
Definitely.
Right. And a majority, and you never know who you can meet. I mean, that's why I always say, like, I had a conversation earlier today about nowadays it's just swipe left or, whatever. It's like ordering food, right? When you're on these different dating apps.
Oh, really?
Where, it's just like, it just looks like, they just like, oh, no, I don't want that tonight. I don't want to, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
No, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't do that in business. You wouldn't just like, oh, I'm not going to talk to this person, that you met. I mean, I don't know. I just think that the old days of the chivalry of, really connecting with someone, I think those kind of days are lost. I think, you should treat your client and, even a potential suitor with a little bit more respect.
Maybe, but are you disrespecting them if do they know that you're swiping past them? No,
but just like not responding if they reach out to you.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't do that in business, right? You wouldn't want to close that door. You never know where that could lead. I mean, it may not be a match or it may not get along at a date if you do a coffee date or whatever, but you never know. He could know someone or she could know someone, and it just kind of the spider web.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you meet with someone, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I also think, too, that I remember I was in a situation where I forever was meeting with people with referrals or prospective clients for my wealth management business. I would have the initial meeting and initial conversation with them at their office. Okay. And there were a number of instances where we really hit it off. And, we had a couple of different things in common, and we didn't even talk about money. We didn't even talk about what I did, but it was great because I had built up that rapport.
Right. So
then I follow up, and we're going to have our next meeting, and they've got like $40,000 of credit card debt. They don't have the assets that are a good fit for me. But at that point, I'm kind of stuck, right?
Right.
It's like, what do I do? How do I get out of this? And I didn't get out of it because oftentimes I wanted to help them because I had spent time with them.
Right.
So I think, this is similar to our friend Marcus Sheridan. He has this term called assignment selling, which is you do get to a point, and hopefully most people get to a point when they're dating where they do get to be super selective about who they're going to talk to, where this is where it'll be a little different, but assignment selling is where you're sort of giving the other person who's potentially interested in you a little bit of a homework assignment before you'll meet with them. And we use this in Cadre today. Anytime we get a referral to a prospective member, I'm not meeting them for lunch. I'm not meeting them for coffee. We've laid out on our website exactly what Cadre is, exactly who it's for, what our different events look like, how much it costs. So it's, hey, great to meet you. You look like you could be a good fit. Please spend 10 or 15 minutes reviewing the website, including the cost information. And if you like what you see, use the form at the bottom to contact me and we'll schedule a call. I was having too many 45-minute phone conversations with people that ended with, now, how much does it cost again? No. And you can never get that time back. So in my wealth management business, what I did was I just had people fill out an intake form that had check boxes, and it would take them 5 to 7 minutes. Thanks for your interest. Please let me know a little bit about yourself and where you're at. And that way, if they were not in a position to be a good client for me, or they had expectations that I didn't feel like we could deliver on, like, oh, we want our portfolio to go by 20% every single year, then I did not have that attachment to them. And it was much easier for me to say, nah, I don't want to work with you.
Right. I don't want to work with you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes it seamless, right? I mean, it saves time. You cut through the crap, right?
Yeah. So you're just going to be spending, because every time I imagine, every time you go out on a date with somebody, there's opportunity cost to that. It could be meeting other guys. It could be investing in your business. It could be just a lot of things. So, I think it depends, right? I think sometimes people don't deserve a follow-up. Sometimes they do.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll take that. Now, what do you say to those people who get discouraged in business? But I'm going to translate it into the biz of the dating world. But I mean, you know a lot of entrepreneurs. Do you ever hear a lot of feedback? I'm just so frustrated. There's just too much going on, especially in the dating world. There's just so many apps. Like, how do you help kind of streamline and help those people on your advisory boards to not just give up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not like I'm out of ideas right now, but again, I think a lot of people that are saying this in business and in dating are doing the same thing over and over again and not getting their results. We could bring this back to what we do with Cadre, right? We're bringing together givers. If givers are going around and they are trying to find ways to add value for other people's business and identify referrals for them, if they're takers and they don't have that mentality, too many, like, people think like, oh, I've given this person 2 referrals and they've never given me a referral back. They're just not wired that way. Yeah. And you're investing time into relationships that with people that are not wired the way that you are wired. So I think that being frustrated with your situation, when you are being intentional about who you're spending time with and what you're doing, is different than being frustrated with your situation where you're not taking a step back to say, like, am I spending time with the people and at the places and at the events and at the bars that have the people that I want to get to know better? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. No, I like that analogy.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and so we have a few more minutes, but I wanted you to talk a little bit more of how people can get in touch with you and how they can go and grab your book on Amazon.
No, that'd be great. Yeah. So they can go to DerekCoburn.com and there's a link to my book on Amazon there. And they can probably reach me on Twitter too, which is Cadre DC. And that's really it.
That's awesome. So, well, yes, and if you haven't gotten it, go out there and get the book right now. It's amazing, and it will help you network better. So, thank you.
Jen.
Yeah, thank you. It was so much fun having you here today.
This was awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right, thanks. All right, bye.